And let's enjoy ourselves in this process.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, yes, wonderful.
Arvind, we can't see you.
Yeah, good evening. Actually, I'm trying to fix my background. It is it is not letting me change my background. I'm stuck with the background.
No worries. We'll see what we won't see your background. We'll only see you.
Wow, what a background.
You're
The
still
talent
on the
fiesta part.
talent fiesta of MWS.
Colorful.
Okay. Okay.
Right. First of all, yes, a few words about education in general. We understand that we are not building some kind of, education of some specific skill or technical education, how to make carpentry and so on. We are not going into some technology. Um, we are trying to build education of liberal arts. Yes, what constitutes human beings. Yeah? And that means we involve the faculties of consciousness, how they have to be educated, trained, and finally given to children and teachers to be used. Then we try to practically use them and see what happens, how we arrive at understanding of ourselves and the world. And these two definitions of self-knowledge and world knowledge are important. Yes, the world knowledge involves many more things, maybe technological, technical knowledge, also skills and so on. But the self-knowledge requires those liberal arts or humanities, as we call them. Yeah? Humanitarian subjects. There are so many names for these. Yeah? So these are the major subjects. What are they? They are philosophy, psychology, history and sociology on the scale of time and space, synchronic diachronic approach to the development. Linguistics, where linguistics includes philology, everything what how we speak, the word, the speech and languages and understanding of the structure of the languages and so on, grammar, syntax, morphology and so on. And not only that, but also philosophy of word, of language, and many more things which language generates and creates, because there's not only linguistic approach to the verbal languages, but also to the self-expression in general using different languages. And art and culture. That means I add culture in general because it's all art, music, other forms of, even maybe some artistic, like sculpture, architecture, and maybe even poetry. It's already from the word drawn to the art and so on. And then scientific approach, as we see the world as such, yeah, adhibhuta. So science of nature, let us say, natural sciences, physics, chemistry, they also can be incorporated into this set of, though they are separated usually from liberal arts because they are about the world, but it is about how we perceive the world. Yeah? With our faculties. We don't see that link yet, but we will see at the end. And that's what we try to establish. We want to say that all our understanding of the world and ourselves depends on these faculties and their development. That's basically simplistic way of putting it. Yeah? There is no other way, so to say. I do not know other way, at least. Imparting information, trying to remember information and to use it, it's not the way to know the world. Yeah? Maybe it's a way to operate within the world to a certain degree, to fake our understanding and to be always dissatisfied with what we really do here, and compensate our undeveloped stage with salaries and other kind of activities, going to the supermarkets, traveling, and so on and so forth, trying to fill the gap of our uneducated state of consciousness, yeah? and and also create an illusion of us knowing and understanding the world. That's what we usually do nowadays. Yeah? That's we have to be very narrow specialists in a particular field and delivering that particular knowledge or information which we learned for many years on to kids who have to remember it and deliver it to others. And by that, we are compensated our partial development. We are not holistically developed. We are compensated for that particular thing. Be professor of philosophy of 18th century of, in Germany. That's it. You're a professor of that kind. You know your subject. You read everything. You go to the university, deliver it, and the rest will be given to you in terms of money, which you may use as you like. And then you do whatever you want. But here there is another concept, the concept of holistic development. If we tap into all the faculties and develop all of them in the harmonious and integral way, the human being can be so globally, so holistically developed that it would be interested to live a full life and not to be compensated by something for its partial development. You know? The world and the life could be so interesting that maybe even dangerous for this arrangement of compensation, because you would not be able to compensate anything for this consciousness. Yeah, it would engage and always find some new solutions, some interesting relations, some interesting interactions. So money becomes less relevant or secondary in a way, and all that for what we build this system of education to get efficient place in the society where you fit in and get your compensation becomes irrelevant. So to say, I'm showing you the dangerous part of this of this approach. It's really dangerous for this society which wants now to survive, yes, with specialization and so on and so forth. So we are developing holistically educated people who are interested in life as it is, without trying to be something else. I do not know why I said all this, but I wanted to for you to see how far we try to go. You know? And why these faculties are important. Because when my consciousness is fully available to me with all the harmoniously developed faculties, my life can be very interesting. It doesn't matter poor or rich. Really doesn't matter, because everything is interesting. Everywhere there is a divine beauty, the relations, the true values you can find on every level. As Bindu says, if you are born into poor conditions, you have to learn to enjoy your state of consciousness in those conditions, because there is also the divine there. It doesn't care about how much you have and what environment is surrounding you. It is only the divine environment always surrounding you. So to see that, to be able to engage with that, we need these faculties to be totally developed. I do not know whether maybe I jumped into I didn't know that we will be developing the whole relations and trying to discuss these things, because the idea was that we meet once and I will give you kind of an overview and that would be the end of the story. But now I see that we are developing kind of understanding of what we are dealing with. And we go deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole, and eventually we will have to see the foundations, the very foundation of the Vedic vision, because without it, I don't think we will be able to understand and appreciate the faculties and how they and what they are doing here and why we need to develop them. So I was thinking maybe I will skip that part which I started with and give you an overview, a psychological presupposition or presumption on which everything is built. Something fundamental on the presumption of which all this vision and knowledge is built, and that is Vedic vision. And I was thinking today, maybe I should start from this. And today I will make an overview of the creation, what this creation is about from the Vedic point of view. And for you, it would be interesting as educators in general, I guess. And that is your also your culture, Indian culture, which I hope one day will, be recovered or deconstructed and put into modern language and become available for everyone in the world. So today I prepared this I will project a PowerPoint presentation. We'll go through it very fast and leave some time for you to tell me about your vision of what you are trying to develop. Okay? Is it okay? Let me project it. Wait a minute. Okay, this is the Vedic vision which I prepared long ago. And I would like us to go through it because it gives you a psychological ground on which you can understand how consciousness with its faculties relate to our existence, being and consciousness, how they relate. Yeah. Because we think about consciousness as in very abstract terms, but it is much more concrete. It's something which being has, but in a particular special relations. So I will start with this PowerPoint presentation, which may help us to understand few things. So the beginning. Yeah, I can say a few words about Sri Aurobindo. What Sri Aurobindo says about the Veda. The Veda is the earliest gospel we have of man's immortality. The central conception of the Veda is the conquest of the truth out of the darkness of ignorance, and by the conquest of the truth, the conquest also of immortality. The Veda is perfect and beautiful in its coherence and its unity. So this conquest of the truth out of the darkness of ignorance, that's could be a very good aim of education. Yes, we have to conquer the truth out of the darkness of ignorance. And it requires energy, it requires concentration. It's not just some kind of uh, process of telling us how it is. It needs involvement, engagement, subjective engagement. So I will be very brief with this because I want to save some time. So the beginning, at the beginning was the self. He was alone. That's why I made this picture of the sun in the darkness. He looked around and didn't find anybody except himself. The self, that is Atman or Brahman, yeah, was the beginning. And he said, I am, but there was no other name to say, for he was alone. He was not happy. He wanted another. This myth is much more complex. There are many more things. I just took only a few lines out of it. But what is important that at the beginning, the one who alone was looking for somebody else and couldn't find anybody but himself. He was everywhere himself, so to say, because he alone was. There was no other space. There was nowhere to look. Only within himself he could look for somebody and could find only himself. And when he wanted to say who he was, it was only I am, because there was no other name to say. There was no other. There was only him. And then what is Shatapatha Brahmana says, it's quite interesting. He became afraid. I omitted this part. He became afraid, and Shatapatha Brahmana says, yes, the one who alone is always afraid. And then he thought, whom am I afraid of if I alone am omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent? And then fear vanished. And then Shatapatha Brahmana says, yes, fear always comes from another. This is a very good definition of fear. Fear always comes from another, not from oneself. So when we meet otherness of self, we always shrink. Fear means shrinking back to yourself. Yeah? That is a particular sense. And if you look into the bhayam, bhi root, to be afraid, it is actually diminishing appearance. Bha is to appear, and bhi is to shrink, to appear smaller. So I'm coming back to myself. I drop back from otherness. I cannot meet, I cannot understand the otherness of self, so to say. And that's why we are afraid from another. But when we are ourselves in all selves, we have fear vanishes. Yeah. If I see only myself in all selves, there is nothing to be afraid of. I am everywhere. The whole world is me. Yeah? And so, in a way, as it was at the beginning. So that fear shrinking started this kind of adventure for the one being. He was not sanaiva reme, Sanskrit language says. He was not rejoicing. He was not even peacefully rejoicing, reme, from Rutram. Sadvitiya maichat. He wanted another. Now, this is the beginning of creation. And for many years, I was surprised, I will not read these texts for you, that in all the texts, Vedic texts, there is constantly going this double creation. So you can read it in all the texts. And I was always surprised. How is that? Why is that? I will come to these maybe later if you want to. So Sri Bindu says in the Life Divine, why should Brahman, that oneself, who is perfect, absolute, infinite, needing nothing, desiring nothing, at all throw out force of consciousness to create in itself these worlds of forms? And the answer follows. If then being free to move or to remain eternally still, to throw itself into forms or retain the potentiality of form in itself, it indulges its power of movement and formation, it can be only for one reason, for delight. There is no other reason for the one being who is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent to do anything of the kind. There was only the delight. The reason was Ananda, because it is pleasant to do for him. He enjoys doing it. Mother speaks about the Ananda of unity, which he was seeking for. He was not happy with Ananda, well, he was happy, he's constantly happy with Ananda of identity, as she says. He has the Ananda of identity. He is identical with its own omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent being. But he wanted the Ananda of unity. And that distinction she makes, Ananda of identity and Ananda of unity. Unity means he wanted to be many. He wanted to realize the unity which he has within himself through many. He wanted to have that joy of interacting with oneself as another. And that another which appeared, the fear, that shrinking which he was looking for another within himself, couldn't find him, is already kind of anticipating the creation of another. Why I'm doing all this with you, I think it is utmost important to understand the beginnings, the psychological presumption of the creation, so to say, because we are representing him, as it were, here, and we have that knowledge within our deepest self. And if it is touched upon or recovered or connected to, you will have the best guidance for anything you do. So, Mother speaks about this a bit differently. The Supreme, says the Mother, decided to exteriorize himself, objectivize himself in order to have the joy, notice the joy, of knowing himself in detail, to spell himself out. His infinite qualities have to be seen as separate, as unique in time and space. That's why time and space where comes into being, yes, because it helps us to spell out of those infinite qualities. And if you look at our physical reality, you will see that everything is here infinitely, uniquely different. There is no the same leaves on the trees. You will not the same. You will not find the same pebbles on the shore. You will not find the same fingerprints. Everything is uniquely different, and because of time and space, because the same self cannot occupy the same space. So a space is pulling out and spreading the self in all its infinite varieties. So he wanted to have a joy of knowing himself in detail, to be able to see himself. He never saw himself objectively. He subjectively was, but to view oneself objectively, in others, I look at you and I see you as myself different from me, uniquely presenting myself in a unique, different position. Now, this is what he wanted to have. The first thing in himself which he exteriorized was the knowledge of the world and the power to create it, the chittapas, yeah? That is consciousness force, which we will be studying, which we will be educating. This consciousness force, knowledge, consciousness, and force, began its work. And in the supreme will, there was a plan. And the first principle of this plan was the expression of both the essential joy and the essential freedom, which seemed to be the most interesting feature of this creation. Sorry. If you think about it, essential joy and essential freedom, these are two major values of our existence. Yeah? Freedom, that means I am allowed to be myself and develop myself as I am. And joy, I have the right for essential joy of being. These are two highest human rights, yeah, which we have to acknowledge. And we have to acknowledge them in education as well. Joy and freedom. Let us have fun, as Bindu says. Let us be free and have fun. This is it. If we can do this, if you can build a system which will value these major qualities or major values, then it will work perfectly. So, yeah, before going into this, I already showed the slide because I would try to be fast. If you think of it, how the one who alone is could really become another. There is another definition, Bahusyam, may I be many. And he wanted to be many. I will come to those texts which I quoted before, I just skipped them. How he could be another, Sadvitiya Maichat, he wanted the other, the second. How could you be another if you alone are? What would be your creation? Can you tell me? Let us explore this. I'm pushing it because I want you to be involved. instead of listening to these nice words. And then how would you create your creation? Being alone everywhere, wherever you look, you are here, there, and everywhere. Only you, and nobody else. How could you become another? Some people say you have to imagine. He imagined himself as another. Others say he, in his mind or whatever, he created another this. But okay, imagination of oneself as another doesn't work. He wanted to be another. Imagination is like a hallucination. He hallucinated himself to be another, and then it turned to be that it wasn't.
So here I'm reminded of a famous epic poetry poem. This is written by Jaishankar Prasad's
Mm.
Kamaini. So Kamaini is the story of how everything came into existence. Manu was all alone there, and a few years, he was just alone waiting for someone. He was the only one, remaining after all that happened, Pralay. So he kept waiting, and finally Shraddha came. So we still don't know whether Shraddha was actually another or an imagination of Manu's own mind creation. So
Yeah, it's nice, right.
but everything was, but it did manifest because uh, the species human being came into existence after they came together, they got together. Manav was born. But yet, I have read in somewhere, and according to Shatpath Brahman, it is said that Shraddha was actually nowhere there. It was just Manu's own imagination, creation of his own mind.
Mm.
And the universe got together, the entire universe got together to make this happen. So it's really
But we,
confusing.
yeah, we are at the stage where there is no universe. It is he alone, who alone is, wants to be many. There's no universe yet. Universe already he has something to deal with. Yeah? How to exteriorize himself, how to objectivize oneself. This is the big problem for him. To become many, to become visible to himself, to be dealing with oneself in many forms. How did he become many? The one who alone is. It's a big problem. He solved a huge problem for himself. He created something incredible. But how did he do this? This is the fundamental question. Once you have a glimpse of it, everything else follows, because this is the purpose of this creation, the meaning. mm, the So is there any other idea how to become? If you are omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, you are everywhere, you know everything, you are all blissful, all powerful, almighty. There is nobody else. There is nowhere any gap in which you can find something else than you. There's no even space, no time. Because space and time is already a problem. It creates some kind of rhythm, some kind of gap. So there is no gap in you. How would you become many?
No idea.
Yeah. You have to create the gap. You have to make the gap. And how do you make the gap? The first creation, Veda speaks of the eternal night. Night, says the Veda, was born out of the shining truth of the supreme power. So if in the Bible they say, let it be light, in the Veda, the God says, let it be night, because he is light. So night was not there. Night came into being. It is his first creation. What is this night? We will look into it. And from the night, the waters of the inconscient came into being. And from the waters of the inconscient, the time was born, the creator of all that moves. So out of himself, he casts a luminous shadow, all these worlds from the superconscient to the inconscient, gradually denying himself, withdrawing his supreme knowledge from his supreme power, that knowledge power, consciousness, chit shakti, chit tapas, becoming unaware of these worlds as himself. He withdraws his awareness from his being, and his being is left without consciousness. And this is the darkness. This is the night. He is not aware of his being as himself anymore. He withdrew his consciousness from his power, and his power is left alone. And Sri Aurobindo speaks in Savitri, in the enigma of the darkened vasts, in the passion of self-loss of the infinite, a contradiction founds the base of life. The eternal, the divine reality has faced itself with its own contraries. Being became the void, and conscious force nescience, and walk of a blind energy, and ecstasy took the figure of world pain. This is something amazing, this first creation. Mother speaks about 4 emanations of the Supreme. Consciousness in light, that is awareness of the being. Bliss, that is the delight of this awareness of the being. Truth, which is the mm, supermind in our system, and life, which is existence, being itself. Now, these 4 emanations, which were supposed to manifest the divine, which represent the divine in its existence, Sat, Chit, Tapas, Ananda, and Vijnana of the Vedic system, they were given full right to freedom and joy to create. And what they did, they started to create, so to say, envision the universe or the being in their own way, separating from the source. Once they got separated from the source, Mother says, they gradually fell into their opposites. The consciousness in light turned into the darkness. You can see in the picture here is the darkness at the bottom. The bliss turned into suffering, because once the power, the ananda is there, but the consciousness, awareness of the Supreme is not there, the vastness of consciousness is not there, it is narrowing down and becomes intense pain. And then the truth turned into falsehood, and finally all these dragged the being into death, the everlasting existence, the immortal being died for the first time. So,
Vladimir,
yeah,
is this also the concept of duality?
yeah,
Advaita.
absolutely. The duality was created. There is a light and there is a darkness, the night. There is the joy, ananda, and there is suffering. There is the truth and there is the dark or the falsehood. And then there is life, eternal life, immortality, and death. Here we have these 4 major fundamental opposites. And we can understand that the darkness is nothing but light, which forgot or disconnected from the Supreme Being existence. Or suffering is nothing but bliss, which forgot or disconnected from the Supreme source of its own. And the falsehood is nothing but truth. Falsehood is truth, which disconnected from its supreme source. And death is nothing but life, which forgot what it is. Now, if you look at this, you will see how beautifully it is um, envisioned. And in the Veda, it is there. Yes, you can see it in the Veda that the night is constantly invoked. And I will come to it later about the Veda. But here, this is the first creation. Once this happened, Mother says the Shakti or the Divine Mother turned towards the Supreme, his own awareness, his identity, told him, look what happened with these emanations. They turned into opposites. They took seriously the creation and they disconnected from the source and turned into their opposites. What shall we do? And so the Supreme answered to her, you find a greater force within this infinite being, within Supreme, and precipitate those fallen emanations with a greater consciousness, greater bliss, greater truth, and greater life. And let that which will come down bring back these fallen emanations to their full self-awareness, redeem them in their origin. So they have to return back to their self-awareness with the help of those emanations which will come in. So we are coming to the second creation. The second creation, there were two creations. And that is important for us because the second one will deal with these faculties we need. When the first involution took place, says the Veda, and the light was turned into the darkness, the creation became as if unsteady. It could not sustain itself. It wasn't. It wasn't in its awareness. It could fall into oblivion, into eternal darkness. So the Supreme Self had to enter and to support it from within, as it were. And when he entered, as the Veda says, himself by himself, Atmanatmanam abhisam vivesha. Atmana, by the Atman, by the self, Atmanam, himself, he entered. And the creation became steady. Now, this entering oneself by oneself is the fundamental notion here. And that is what we will be looking into. So Sri Aurobindo Savitri, very beautiful passage, when all was plunged in the negating void, non-being's night could never have been saved if being had not plunged into the dark. If being would not descend into the darkness itself would not be there, could not be saved. The night itself, that separated consciousness, which separates us into different unique poises of consciousness, would not be taking place because there would be no reference points of consciousness there. So that reference point of consciousness within the darkness is important for the darkness to survive and to act. It makes sense, yes? It's a little kind of paradox, but it makes sense. So in the mother's story, in order to repair the fall of the first emanations, the Supreme Mother Aditi delegated out of herself the force of love, which has plunged into the darkness of the first creation. In the Vedas, it is Agni, the divine will, the first avatar, who lay down and hid himself within the darkness, the immortal among mortals. It is because of his presence that everyone is evolving, seeking after the higher knowledge of the Supreme. Mother speaks about this avatar, first avatar, which lay down at the bottom of the inconscient, this infinite darkness here. And this avatar, this light, the source of all our evolution, is there within our darkness. Now, we never speak about going down into the darkness to find the truth. We always look upward and go upward and look for somewhere. We are always afraid to look into the darkness, but the Veda actually speaks about the secret of the divinity hidden deep within the darkness. Sri Aurobindo discovered it by digging into this inconscient. He said he was digging into this infinite rock, Adri. This is the Vedic term, Adri, the infinite density of darkness, to which he was digging until he broke through, and there was a spring of the supreme light coming through the darkness. This is the secret of the Veda. We lost it in time. From Upanishadic time onwards, we don't speak about the light hidden within the darkness. But that is the source of all our evolution, all our development. That is what we are here representing, our souls, our psychic beings. Within the heart, we have the supreme in us, which is totally aware of the divine within us, but slowly, gradually to the surface, we are less and less and less aware. We have this double nature, something in us totally aware and something in us totally unaware of our supreme source, divinity within us. So it's quite interesting to think in those terms, because this is an
Vladimir, does
yeah.
the concept of Maya also coming from here?
Yeah. What is Maya? Maya is these grades between the supreme source of where we are totally aware and all this what was created here on the surface about which we are not aware. So Maya in the Veda is a creatrix, is the power which manifests the divine. In the later language, it is an illusion, but it is from root ma, to create, to shape, to form. So these forms can be considered as illusion because they're constantly evolving and developing and never staying in the same form. That's why it is not something which is final, yes. But from another point of view, it's not an illusion. It's a developmental stage of the being in time and space. And evolution starts from here. So Sri Aurobindo defines evolution as a soul of the divine is here, slowly awaking out of its involution and concealment in the material inconscience. This is what evolution is about, this gradual awakening. And that is actually the education. Education has to help this gradual awakening of our supreme being within us. And for that, we need to involve with faculties and connect them to our deepest self as far as we can. So here there is a passage from Savitri, and maybe I will stop at this. And because time-wise, I would like to hear what you are to say about your project. He sleeps in the atom and the burning star. He sleeps in man and God and beast and stone. Because he is there, the inconscient does its work. Because he is there, the world forgets to die. This is something very beautifully poetically said. The world forgets to die. It had to die long ago, but it forgot to die because he is there within him, within the world, which is not allowing world to die. He, the one who is aware of himself, and that is our soul. Now, the soul has faculties, and I will come to it. The Purusha has faculties: speech, mind, hearing, seeing, breathing, touching. All these faculties are there, representing consciousness here on the surface of being. And they have to be connecting us to the deeper sense in us, deeper presence in us. And we will speak about evolution from now on next time, about terrestrial evolution, about two double process of it. One is the process of building up the body, the instruments of knowledge, the organs, and the other is the evolution of our soul, which is coming closer and closer to the surface and building more and more effective instruments within this being. Okay, I stop here. Sorry. Now, please let us, if you don't have any questions, please let us listen to your project proposal or ideas, how you are going to do it. And it would be lovely to know something from your side.
So Vladimir, it was really nice. It helped me to go back years ago when I was to do my sessions.
Right. We've spoken
And
on this not
in
once,
the
I guess.
process, I had forgotten and maybe lost a lot of the ideas, but I'm glad you did it up because it helped me clear a lot of it. With my poor memory anyway, I'm very happy you did this. It's a good session. I'm sure the team would have liked to hear you even more.
Yes, it has just started. In fact,
Yeah, we started our journey, evolution. What is this evolution of consciousness? That's what our educational project is about. Yeah, we have to tap into this evolution of consciousness. What is evolving through these faculties, how it is shining through. So we have to help this being to reveal itself, to bring it to the surface through the faculties. That's the whole purpose of our educational system, I guess. Of course, it was hijacked by other kind of ideas of making man an instrument for some kind of, social entertainment enterprise and industrial age, and making him a very good worker. It's more like a recruiting system, yeah, which is creating recruits for its own purpose. But that is okay. That is a part of the deal. And if we have this deeper vision, we will see that it has its place and it's meaningful and it's necessary, but more can be done.
Maybe God wanted to even experience how it is to be an expert doctor, a lawyer.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
evolution has to take place in that form.
Can you imagine all lawyers and doctors and teachers are aware of this purpose of our life, what we are here to do, what kind of society we would have?
Maybe he thought they would, but we're still trying to surface.
Mm.
Uh, so I would like to share my screen, but it says the host
Yeah,
has
I'm sorry, I'm
been
giving you
accepted.
this. Yes, please go ahead.
So, so it's like we thought of an activity, selecting apples for my jam, and how that this activity can be used to teach a lot of subjects, or maybe let's see. So the teacher brings a variety of apples and a bottle of apple jam and places them in front of the students and steps back. Students are asked to study the objects and share their observations. They may come up with a variety of responses, including the fact that these are some apples and it is a bottle of apple jam made using these apples. The teacher then asks them if they can make it, and if yes, how, and what would be the steps involved. Here, actually, when we were discussing, we thought that we'll just have some apples and maybe an empty bottle, and the children, let's see what they do with them. So maybe somebody would try to fit the apple in, somebody would probably eat the apple and go away, and somebody would probably, and slowly they would come to the idea of creating jam and putting it in the apple, in the bottle. So a variety of steps that would come out of this discussion would be, maybe buy apples, cut them, add sugar, cook them, bottle the jam, and then these can be linked to various subjects, but then according to the interest of the child. So maybe some of them would come about like this is how each one of them could be linked to different subjects. So, like for example, English, you could have vocabulary terms, you could have adjectives, you could have sentence structures, idioms using the word apple, jingle writing for advertisement of jam, geography, seasons in which apples are found, soil and climate suitable to growing of apples, science, food preservation and its importance, social
Ramnik, I think Vladimir has just got into a call. Just hold on.
Mhm.
yeah.
Maybe if you can explain to him why we started with an activity, because it gives the child joy, it gives the child happiness. So you're actually moving from there.
Sorry, please go ahead. Just had to be interrupted a bit.
Joy and freedom. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Ramnik.
I
yeah.
understand how you connect everything to the apple, all possible, faculties.
So basically, what we were thinking about was that, how different children would probably have different ways of looking at it. So somebody who wants to do art may probably go and draw a label for the jam bottle or design the bottle. And even when he's designing the bottle, he studies material. So even when he's studying art, he goes back to science and probably looks for materials that would help him make his bottle better for the jam or whatever. So each uh, when you're talking about art also, you have some science, you have maths involved, you have the IT skills involved, and somewhere we could even involve some sustainability goals, like how do I make, if suppose I have to do this business, how do I make my business zero waste, what can I do with the peels, how do I benefit the society. And
super
there can be endless possibilities of
beautiful.
it'll all, and these parts will all depend upon how the child responds to it. But each way he responds, the child responds, different subjects can still be linked to it. So now let's see an example of how the children can ask questions to select the apples they want to buy for the jam. This is from where we actually started with the activity. So, like, suppose if they were to select apples, so how do they do that? So then the children would probably say by seeing them with our eyes. And so, what do you see? So we see the color, we see the size, we see the fresh and stale, how fresh is the apple. What are some other things that you can see? Maybe the shape. But this seeing itself can then be taken into different, it can be extended to how do you see different things around you. uh, and so there can be some activities where only you talk about seeing the apple on one day, and then you go to by feeling them. So what can you feel? You can feel whether the apple is hard or soft, you can feel whether it is smooth or rough. So these questions and answers would all be coming from the children itself. So then you move to smelling them, and by tasting them, I taste that the apple is sweet or sour. By hearing them, now can we hear an apple? Tap your fingers on it and hear the sound it makes. So I can listen to the sound when I tap on the apple to know if it is solid or hollow. And a hollow apple could actually be infected by a worm. So moving to the different senses and then going to a rhyme. I don't think I shared sound. Wait. Mm, just a second. Let me share again with sound.
I'm a fruit that's firm, crisp, and and juicy. Eat me fresh with my peel, don't be too choosy. My shape is round, my color's red or green. In tiny pockets in me, a few seeds are seen. I'm rich in fiber and nutrients, they say. Eat me every day to keep the doctor away. My name's the first word taught with the alphabet. Newton learned why things fall when I fell on his head. I grow in places neither too hot nor cold. Dishes are made for me, hot and cold. Mom calls her baby the apple of her eye. Without me there can be an apple pie. Dear apple of your pies, we are great fans.
Want to know how it sounds in your own voice? Just sing along.
So the second part of it allows you to sing along. Only the music plays. So you do a listening, and then you do then the discussion on this, the rhyme itself. So how an apple can be studied in different ways. So look around you and then select any two objects. This is for the children. And now describe them using the sentence structures given below. This is basically to develop the language skills. So I see that the dash, whatever the object is, dash, I hear that this makes a sound. And so basically the senses, but how, because we've just talked about apple, they've observed the apple. So similarly, if you pick up another object, how do you see it? How do you hear it? What are the characteristics that you can see? What are the characteristics that you can hear? And then sort of deduce it to that these words that we use for describing are called adjectives. And then there's a rhyme on what adjectives are. And then there's an activity. Write down any 10 adjectives that you heard in the video, speak them out loud, write the up. So this is basically how that activity can be used to come to English. But similarly, we can go to different subjects depending upon their this thing. And then moving to a reflection. Can I taste the apple before I buy it? Now I can't. If I go to buy apples, I can see them, I can probably tap on them, feel them, but I can't taste them. So then what should I do? So how do I train my other senses to predict what taste the apple would have? So share your thoughts by speaking, writing, or drawing. What you feel would help you predict the taste before buying an apple. Also, would you still be able to? Oh, sorry. Would you still be able to perceive an object if you did not have all the senses? So just reflect upon it. The child reflects upon it and then comes up with his thoughts on it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great. I think this is interesting. There's the whole developmental model of predicting how senses are, and that is when we are tapping into the subtle activities of senses. Yeah, so to say, imagine how it tastes. Yeah? So to say, activate your taste consciousness before you taste it. Yeah? Activate your vision consciousness before you see it. And, so this is also, these are the faculties of consciousness within subtle realms. Yeah, they are not turned outside, they're turned within, and within you start operating, you start imagining.
Yeah.
And that imagination part is important, for the children. And then drawing it or whatever you can
So
project.
the activity was like for example, when they look for 10 adjectives, they can do the same activity in different ways. Some of them would want to speak out 5 sentences. Some of them would want to draw it. So there were 3 4 activities which out of which the
Mhm,
child can choose any. So the child
mhm,
may draw 5 objects to
Mhm,
show how the adjective, like for example, if he says red apple and he draws a red apple,
mhm,
or if he wants a small car, so he draws a small car to show the characteristics that he can see, the characteristics that he can hear, and how they can be used to describe things. But then
mhm,
moving on to the reflection, that suppose it is not only that you are not being able to taste an apple because you have to buy it, but suppose if you lack the, like for example, if I do not know, if I am not able to see, but I can still see, I can, how do I train myself? How do the blind people who
mhm,
do not actually have vision, but they can still make feel their way around? So
mhm.
how do you train them? So at least they start thinking about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. The inner vision, development of the inner vision.
Hmm.
You are reminding your project reminds me of this Finnish project, educational, model of projects. They don't have subjects anymore; they have projects.
Yeah, I've
So
heard of
within,
it.
yeah, within that project, they do everything. So they do
Hmm.
history, they do biology, they do everything, art. So, and there can be also unexpected, interesting forms. How could you
Yeah.
express the apple in your
Hmm.
own way, like in your body language? Could you express
Hmm.
the apple in your body language, or in your, I don't know, dance, or in
Hmm.
your music?
Hmm.
Create a song or melody which would
Hmm.
express the apple, this particular apple.
Hmm.
And there are subtleties which are so important for the development of faculties, yes, which could be tapped into, and could be a lot of fun. Yeah. Everybody would recognize that he really expressed that apple in that particular gesture, and it would be, yeah, cognizable, and it could be very valuable for the development of personality. I like it. What you did, I think it's marvelous. It's like the in the Indian tradition, it is sporta theory. Sporta, the opening of the meaning, which is taking place through language, word, and so on. But according to Bhartrihari, he wrote this Vakya Padiya, which is the philosophy of language. The sport of the opening of the meaning is taking place through any particular entry. So this entry is an apple. Yeah. Apple collects the whole world. All the meanings of the world are connected through the apple. Apple
Hmm.
becomes our focal point through which we see the world in this moment. So we collect all our engagements, all available to us tools to this particular event of Apple, and the whole
Like for
world.
example, when I was thinking about it, even this apple could be, like history. So you go
Mhm.
even to the Bible.
Absolutely.
What is the role of the apple there? And how did apple jam
Adam
ever
and
get
Eve,
created?
you start
Yeah,
from the
who
beginning.
created jam? How did it ever first come to India? What
Mhm.
is the What was the significance? Why did they make it at that time? What? So you can actually link, and it could be an apple. It could be anything. It could actually be anything which could then form a path for the child to learn, and so they understand that even if
Absolutely.
you have to make a jam, you need to know all this to be able to become successful, probably.
Right.
Like if
It's
you look at these chef bloggers, they keep talking, some of the very good ones keep talking about how this particular ingredient came to India. So
mm,
they talk about history while they're teaching you only how to cook a particular dish.
yeah, yeah. You can speak about breeding different apples. Michurin, there was someone in Russia who crossed two
Yeah.
apple and
The,
a pear, and it became this pear apple, very sweet,
hmm,
yeah,
hmm,
and so on and so forth. And apple, of course, computers apple, bring me apple,
hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that apple I want. Um, And Adam and Eve is also apple, this mythology, and many more apples in mythology, which, and the apple of this Snow White biting the apple and falling asleep and so on. There's so much about the apple in the world
Yeah.
to learn.
So the
Yeah.
idea, Vladimir, is actually similar to your story of creation. You start with joy.
Mm.
What is it that the child really knows and finds joy in? And from that joy, you build the entire world around it. So you may deconstruct it, construct it, break it, recreate it, learn in the process of it. So similarly, like we can connect it to the story that you told us today so beautifully in terms of the, creation.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted delight. So in search of delight, there was duality. And from that duality was pain. So for children, if I look at it, I mean, I'm trying to link it to this concept to say that, apple gives me delight. The joy of eating an apple maybe, or seeing an apple, because I know it. And from this opens my world or my horizon or what I need to know. The journey is from the known to the unknown.
Apple is one. Now, what many? How can you take it to many, many,
So there
many
is,
things?
so all subjects then get linked to it. Like you kept saying, you can link it to this, you can link it to that. And Rabni tried and linked it to the basic theories or practices of our content syllabus that we currently have. But we can go much beyond it and keep developing it. So the creation and use all the faculties of the consciousness to bring that out. So that was the idea when we were debating it, we were talking about it. We said, where do we begin? What you just don't begin from a syllabus from a book, because that's not what we want to do. We want them to use the faculty to question whatever's front of them. So we have to discipline them from the very beginning to make them think in that particular manner. Whatever is in front of you, or whatever you like, whatever gives you joy, has much more profound meaning than just mere delight.
Beautiful.
I don't know if I make any sense.
The idea of delight is beautiful. Yes, then you have to kind of develop that sense of delight, seeing apple eaten by others, not only by you. And
Yeah.
you have to get the joy from this, sharing apple with others, and so on and so forth. You go on with this delight, keep up with it wherever the apple appears.
Yes, and at the end of it, actually, we have a learning outcome. So the learning outcome is the goal of the homeschool is to create social entrepreneurs. We need to have a goal, because at the end of it, we can't just say looking within ourselves. We're looking within ourselves so that we can help others, which means first I have to be independent. I have to be Atmanirbhar to be able to help somebody else. Right? So the idea of the homeschool is that how do you build them into social entrepreneurs? Whatever my talent is, how do I create my own Atmanirbhar out of it? How do I stand on my feet to be able to help others? So the apple, what we were discussing was, after he's done this journey and found knowledge, then you sort of say, okay, now that you've made the jam bottle, at the end of it, the purpose was for you to learn how to make the jam, and you learned 20 million things. Let's come back and say that how will you now learn to, sell that jam, right? Or donate that jam to children who don't have jam to eat, right? So your concept of from myself to others, that journey is
Extend
important.
oneself, yes.
Yes. So the end line of our homeschool basically is is, like we said, being social entrepreneurs. How do you use what the gift God has given you to first stand and understand it, be happy in that, find joy and happiness in it, and give others the joy and happiness of it?
Yeah.
So, Pindamama, thought just came to my mind. Like we picked up one activity, selecting apples to make jam. So what if we have, say, 20 such activities, and we let the child choose what he would want to do? And from there, he starts learning and building, and years, he just builds upon his knowledge till in the end, he's actually becomes an entrepreneur. So some things that we feel the children can actually acquire these skills. So we pick up, say, like we want the end result is to be a social entrepreneur. So even if I'm making apple from jams, or I am making a particular anything. So what if the children are allowed to choose whichever line they would want to choose? But in each process, they will be learning their basic maths. You can integrate that into any of them. They'll be learning art, they'll be learning music, they'll be learning jingle making, they'll learn language. Their vocabulary words may be a little different, but still they will have a lot of vocabulary. Sentence structures, grammar would still remain. And by the end of 5 6 years, they actually become entrepreneurs in that particular field. And suppose in the middle, if they realize this is not what I'm not getting joy in this is not what I want, they can shift, they can change.
Yeah, but see, these children are coming to us when they are 7 to 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
So the process is, like we said, we'll have 3 levels: level 1, level 2, level 3. Each level is for 3 years. So in the first level, of course, everything has to be through a directed, guided program. It cannot be left wild, right? Because then you wouldn't know where you're heading. So, and this whole concept is to make them, like we said, Shravlan. The first stage is all about learning, listening. It doesn't matter. I know, but I don't understand. It's okay. Let that feeling be there. Okay, because that's leading me to learn more. If I know everything when I'm just 7, 8, 9 years old, what will I learn later in life? Right? So we will definitely have to define some things initially, but let them choose their path. You're right. We'll have to let them choose their path. But at the end of it,
So those paths will have guided, you will have, like for example, you want them to you want them to know basic maths, all of them. You want them all to learn basic language skills. You want them to be able to make a sentence. You want them to be able to make a paragraph. You want them to be able to write a letter, all that. But maybe I would want to make jam and do learn all that. Maybe the other one would want to maybe make pots, maybe make cloth.
yeah,
So, you know,
absolutely.
so but like even if I make if even if I'm learning how to make a particular kind of cloth, I may be learning about the same soil geography related to cotton. But that the type of soil, the type of climate, and well, I'm just giving vague examples. I'm not really giving a lot of thought to it. But maybe you can have different. We can think about it. All these need to be planned and brought in, but these can then be so the child feels he's choosing his way of learning, so he picks up what it's like when you go to ed tech tools, like for example, if you pick up any app, so you're allowed to choose your avatar, so the knowledge is still the same. Somebody will use frozen characters and the story is different. Somebody will use
Yeah, but Ramni, the content or the learning outcome remains the same. Okay,
yeah,
you can
yeah,
choose your path. So
yeah,
we have to define learning outcomes.
yeah, yes.
We shouldn't worry about the process they take, because the process is the journey, and that's where we are heading towards.
Hmm.
I mean, Vladimir, to me, faculty of consciousness only emerges or becomes strengthened when we follow our own path. When we explore, we experiment, we sort of imagine what we are going through, or document what we are going through, or talk about what we are going through. So, but it has to go through a direction. It has to go towards a learning outcome because you can't leave it vague.
Yeah.
For,
So
yeah, for example, one of the outcomes of this Apple study can be trees, where you plant the trees and you clip the trees, take care of the tree when it grows and it blooms and what bloom it has and how the apples come into being. And then learning from nature this abundance, abundance of joy and self-giving. Nature gives its flowers, its fruits to everyone without really looking back. It's not selling its fruits. Yeah, it's people who are selling fruits to each other and squashing each other for money. But the nature is free and generous and beautiful. This kind of appreciation of these higher qualities, values, all are connected to this apple somehow. Uh, and they can be learned. And this is the learning which is going beyond the faculties. It goes into the verities or into the qualities of our soul, of our being, which are also very important part and can be introduced here also. What values we learn from it, yeah? And these values are indisputable. You can see them immediately in nature. It's something you don't need to think of very much. It's just felt there. It's visible. So we will come to it in our view of education. There are faculties and verities, and both of them are needed. Verities are those sincerity, humility, gratitude, those, generosity, equality, peace. Those qualities of our being have to be also constantly kind of seen through the material we teach. And Apple is as good as any other material to reassemble the whole world in this particular valuable view. By the way, it reminds me of this when they tried to build artificial intelligence, it's exactly the same approach what you took. That when they explain to the computer, for example, what is the book? Yeah, computer asks, okay, what is, you say, but the book is the thing. What is the thing? My computer asks. He wants to know every definition of every definition. So the more you explain, the more it is left to be explained. So with the book, you go into the paper, wood, letters, stories, reading, man, understanding. So all this is connected to one particular thing, book. Book means writing, reading, enjoying, man,
Yes.
seeing, nature, paper factories, and production, and this and that, and printing press. So many things. The whole world is reassembled in a new fashion because we took that particular point of view. So here you take the apple and you collect and reassemble
You
the
may
whole world.
move on to milk from the cow.
Yeah, you move in every direction. You will see all the connections. And these
Mm.
connections are meaningful. This is
Mm.
Shravana, actually. Meaningful connections. How meaningfully things are connected, not through seeing, but through understanding, through comprehension. We comprehend. And this comprehension has to be developed. Yeah. We will come to it. Apprehension and comprehension. Apprehensive and comprehensive cognition. So they have to take place. So there's much to talk about. But the approach is excellent. I think it is beautiful, concrete, and from near to far, as I see. So you start from near where you are with the apple. It's very near. And then you move farther and farther, deeper and deeper around. And outcome, you have to see for yourself what would be your outcome. Maybe some, I don't know, essay or some unique creation, some drama about the
Mm.
apple, whatever it may be the result of this study. Children create their own drama, their own story, their own something. Yeah.
Depending upon
Impressions,
the level in which they
paintings.
are.
Yeah. Paintings, music, dance, jam, after all.
Apple pie.
Apple
But
pie,
this could be a
excellent.
multi-level activity, and different levels could present different outcomes.
Right. And the study
Actually,
of the
and
apple at the end
the
of
way
2
it's
weeks.
evolving, I feel the whole year could go by only studying this.
Yeah, you can speed up the process also. Within the week, you can have the whole celebration at the end of the week of the apple festival.
Yes.
With planting the trees and so on and so forth.
You can study culture, all festivals related to Apple.
Right. Yeah.
The idea of Vladimir was to actually, bounce the idea and see how you react to it, um, and then see if we were on the right direction and if we could take this forward ahead. Because then we can, in our own way, because it's going to take us a lot of time to really put ourselves into a particular mold and
Sure.
analyze it and go ahead. So I thought it would be a good idea if we kept challenging our own belief systems, going back and saying, did we do this before? Has it helped the child? What has been the outcome then? Are we falling ourselves back into our own trap of the way our education system has taught us? Or is there a new way that we can explore? So I think all of us right now have been very adventurous and are exploring and are willing to look beyond, and I think every time we have this conversation with you, a lot of things get triggered in our minds. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but Harvant and Kavita and Ramni can talk about what they feel.
Definitely, definitely. We have to be in this adventurous process. Otherwise, children are very, very kind of attentive to what is happening in a very, you cannot teach them something you don't believe, and you cannot, it has to go through you. It has to be your adventure as a teacher. Yeah? And not just planned adventure, because it's not enough. Plan has to be there because the material has to be thought out throughout. That has to be, but the adventurous discovery is to be there. It has to be authentic. It should not be made up, because it will become boring to children very fast. So you have to be open book, to explore. You have to have many instruments for exploration already with you, and apply them in a new fashion, unexpected to your own perception also. And then it will be marvelous. Yeah. And but there can be a framework. So we explore these things and we come with outcomes, with creations of, paintings, music, drama, poetry, and so on. Yeah. At the end of the week, suppose. Yeah. I'll study biology, chemistry, whatever, mythology, history. There's so many things, and it could be beautiful and very I can imagine that it will be very interesting for me as a child to be a part of it. And this learning mm, is never going away, because you can apply the same structure, the same freedom, and the same richness of exploration to any other subject. That's what we are learning. We are learning to do it, to apply it to another subject, but that particular experience would be already leading us. We would know
Yeah.
how to do it. Yeah.
The two key words you said, joy and freedom.
Yes, absolutely. Freedom is
I was
important.
just, when we were thinking of 20 activities, I was just thinking that the students, the 7-year-olds, at least they come with a pre-knowledge of alphabets A to Z in Hindi, A se Aha tak, and they've been trained to, A for apple, B for ball, or whatever. So all they know is A for apple, but now this apple can go on for a month and can link to various things. Similarly, the B they already know. So we take them from what they know.
Yeah, great idea, Kavita. I think
Or
it's
we
a
can
great idea to take the entire syllabus like this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so take the alphabets first, take the all A, I, E, for, and just
That
the thing they already know.
that
मेरे
has
पापा
been
से
one of
बन
my
गया.
favorite activities. Like even when we did, like, say, a class assembly, so we did A to Z of the school. So we picked up each letter and we picked up a quality that we would associate that starts with that letter, and then we went on to do a drama on that. So I've done, and I'm still in the process of writing an article A to Z of STEM learning in schools.
Mm.
Uh,
Very good.
but so I have written the names for each, and I've reached, I think, I or J, but I haven't been able to elaborate on all the others. So A to
And the
Z
numbers,
is something
and the
which I'm
numbers
I'm very happy about. Yeah,
at least numbers 1 to 10
one to
is the
ten.
basic.
Yeah.
So we can take them from there
Mm.
anyway.
Yeah. So आपका curriculum syllabus has already been done.
Yes.
Arvind, you want to say something?
No, I'm happy listening.
Shravana.
Thank
Ravana
you.
mood में आज.
I
Okay.
just hope at the end of it, Vladimir actually tells me the secret of I've noticed something very peculiar about your talks and your teaching, Vladimir. So it's I mean, there's something that got planted in my head last time, and I just couldn't get over it. Even when I was not thinking about it, I was thinking about what you had talked about, and I feel the same thing today. So whatever you shared, in a way, it keeps going on in the head. I wonder how you do it. Or, I mean, have you realized you are able to do it? Has somebody else also shared the same thing with you?
Yeah, we have to keep open. I think it's like an open book. Yeah, you have all the instruments of to use, all the particular set of box of tools, as it were, and you have to be, how to say, true to the moment of in time. If it is not fitting, it is not fitting. You feel, yeah, you want to bring something which is not from this time and not from this space. So you have to wait for the right vibration, as it were, and then engage openly, unknowingly, discover the easily stepping into the unknown, easily, how to say, agreeing not to know. It's also a very important device, yes? Not to know everything ahead, and to discover, to make mistake. It's okay. Mistakes are welcome, we learn from them. I think this open field, kind of nothing is yet written and has to be discovered is the important attitude we have to have. That's what I say also. If this system works with this open-minded approach and discovery, and we kind of engage in the though we have some kind of framework, but we still engage in the form, I'm looking for the right word, which would be a surprise for us. There will be a new, fresh discovery. In the Veda, they speak about this. They speak about the word of straightness and the word of crookedness. And this is quite interesting. The word of straightness is always connecting you to the source, to your true being. And the word of crookedness is the word which was once connecting you to the source, but now it is used mechanically as the authority of the past truth. It is like a dogma. It is applied, even if it doesn't fit, it is applied because once it was truth. And that becomes the obstacle for knowing, because knowledge is not something which is made up. It has to come, as it were. It has to be authentic in the moment of time. It has we have to connect to it. And then knowledge comes, and we are knowledgeable in the moment, and then it goes, and we are not anymore. So we are always looking for that connection, that it has to reappear. And the rest is just the methods, tools, frameworks for that to magic to take place. And in that moment, the whole education is taking place. I do not know whether it makes sense, this kind of explanation, but
Made perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Since one has experienced it, it definitely makes perfect sense.
right. And
Yeah.
it draws you, it wants you, you want it, you want that state again and again. You don't want to know anything which is not connecting you to that moment of truth in you.
Mm.
That's how we can even, I had a friend who died recently, and he was a poet, and he was writing poetry in Russian. And he has one poem which was very much about this. He says that your truth is not so true after all. Today nowadays we can lie even by saying the truth. And this is exactly what it is. You can lie by the truth, yeah, because it is not in its proper time and space. So it is misplaced truth. So we need proper truth. Yeah, it has to be discovered. It has to be fresh, even if it is not perfect, but it is fresh and it is authentic. Doesn't matter that it is not perfect. It will perfect itself in time. But that habit to be open and to be free and joyful. Great. I think it's good. We can stop here. I like your project. It's a great idea to bring everything into every time into one project, and the whole world comes together. We reassemble the world from this focal point of view. Yeah? We learn everything, whatever we can within this given time frame.
Thank you.
Mm. Lovely. Okay. So we will stop here for today and reassemble. Are we coming
Next
back
Friday.
next time?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Next Friday.
Are we all coming back, guys?
Yes,
We'll
yes.
always keep
Yes.
coming back.
All right.
Didn't the creator want us to come back? So we'll be back.
Great.
So I guess next Friday again.
Yes.
What is
The
next?
same time. Same time. Mm,
Yeah.
Same time.
lovely. Okay.
Great.
So have a
Well,
nice
thank you
weekend.
so
See
much.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Good
Bye.
night. And good morning and good day for you, Vladimir.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see you. Bye.